Hello Internet, my name is Olivier Roubieu and I'm a mural artist. Today I want to explain the differences between different types of spray. I'm not going to do any demonstration because I'm just working on something at the moment and this is like a bit of a heavy setup. But nonetheless I will show you the differences between all of these different things. So the main categories will be an airbrush, spray can, spray gun, and paint sprayer. So I just want to touch real quick on the paint sprayer. So these you can get two different types. So you can get the hose that it comes with will provide air, just like with the spray gun. You'll have a hose connected to a compressor, and then you connect it like this. This has a quick coupling. To be quick, you can go between tools. If you want, you can also use a nail gun and stapler, so that's kind of versatile. With a paint sprayer, it's all it does is spray paint. You know, you can't do anything else to it. So you got this thing that kind of sounds like a vacuum, and it provides air, like a compressor would. And then you've got the air traveling from here to the gun with the paint at the bottom. Now you got two types. The industrial ones, what they would do is the paint would travel through the hose from the machine to the gun. This one is air, so you got two different types. This one, it's always air that goes from the compressor, and then you got your paint in it. A spray can, I'm sure you know. And an airbrush, what it does is basically the same as a spray gun, but a smaller format. So you've got a hose, I don't know where I put my hose, but you got a hose connected to a compressor, and then you have the paint in a cup, or you can also have a gravity-fed airbrush, which means you have a small bottle underneath, and then it's interchangeable. You can have different colors on the go. It uses more paint, but it's on big format. If you're doing a portrait, you can have 10 different colors in bottles, and then you just keep swapping around. The bottles are kind of like this size, maybe a bit smaller, and then they sort of go underneath and they work this way. I will talk about the best ones to get for each of those things, but I'm just going to carry on with the differences quickly. So why choose one over the other? So I find the most versatile is a spray can. The drawbacks of a spray can is the smell. It smells pretty strong. You need to do it outside, or you need to do it inside with a lot of ventilation. However, and the airbrush to some extent is kind of the same, but however, these two will have a lot of overspray as well. All of these will have overspray. The airbrush also will have overspray. So any spray technique, you will need some ventilation and a mask. So if you're using water-based paint, you know, you can be a bit more easy, I guess, with the mask. So these are paper mask, or I mean a dust mask kind of thing, and it's, I don't know, it's the current one which we're kind of using nowadays for other purposes that I'm not going to talk about. Also, PPE wise, always use plastic gloves. These are nitrile, they're really cool, especially with spray paint. If you use latex, it will tear the plastic, I mean the latex of the gloves, and you can only use them for like 10 minutes. These are nitrile and they're a lot more resistant. They will tear after a few hours, but in the meantime they will work pretty well. So I kind of like those. But for spray paint, you would want a mask that is, where's the mask? For spray paint, you want a mask like this. This is 3M 06941. I'm giving the code because there are different types of masks and they look exactly the same. So some are for MDF, this is for fumes, paint, all that stuff. But when you use those types, you still want a mask. So you can have that, which will work perfectly, or you could have something like this because it's mainly the particle. So you're breathing in the particle, which you don't want. But this has got the particles and the fumes as well, which is pretty dangerous. Also, it's good to wear eye protection, even though these are open and they're not going to protect massively. Something like this would work a lot better because they're sealed with a rubber gasket all around, and especially when you're using these ones, you kind of want this because this is a heavy paint, just like a spray can, so it's not really going to hover in the air. But when it comes to an airbrush and a spray gun, the paint is misty, so thin that it'll go everywhere. So wearing goggles it's advised, really advised. Now, I guess I'll put these two in the category and these two in the category because I'm not sure what I'm going to call this video, but it's probably going to be spray gun versus paint sprayer, what the differences are, because I think that's what most people would want to know. Most people would probably not want to use a spray can, or they would know what a spray can does, and an airbrush, they're probably not quite sure. So this will give you volume. This will give you a lot of volume. This will give you something very, very good, a very good finish. So if you're trying to paint, people use this for the shed, for the fence, for whatever, because it's going to give you a lot of paint with a little bit of air. This will provide the air they provide. I'll plug it in so you can hear it. That's the sound that we got. It's no point plugging my compressor because my compressor is a quiet compressor, but most compressors that you would get for a spray gun are very loud, 97 decibels, and they're very loud. You can get one that is like my, it's a Fat Max quiet compressor, which is great, but even then it doesn't quite work because it requires so much air. Even an airbrush, these two require so much air that you need a big compressor to use. So this is where it gets a bit tricky. So if you want a great finish, this is going to give you the best finish you can get. This is not going to come close. This is going to give you the best finish. But you need a big compressor with a decent motor. Because if your motor is not big enough, your tank is not going to fill up. So if you have a 50-liter tank and a 1.5 horsepower motor, because this uses so much air, the motor never gets a chance to fill up the tank to switch off the motor. So the motor's constantly working and eventually you burn the motor. So whenever you're using a spray gun, you want at minimum 2 horsepower or 3 horsepower, but then it gets a bit tricky. It's not so much about the volume of air that you got in your tank. With a 50-liter tank and a 2.5 horsepower motor, you can paint a car, no problem. But if you have a 150-liter compressor and a 2.5 horsepower motor, there's so much to fill up that it never switches off. A lot of the time when you get an airbrush, you will get a mini piston compressor. They're very quiet, and they, depending on the one you get, you want a tank, but they normally have a much bigger motor than a tank. So they got a tiny tank, and it allows the tank to fill up and switch off, auto switch off the motor, so it has a bit of a break. As you're painting, it doesn't stop. I mean, the motor stops, but you can keep painting and then it turns on again. So this way you don't burn out your motor. But these are a bit more expensive. I sold mine because I'm actually selling my airbrush as well because I never use it anymore, hardly. So that's that, and it requires a lot of cleaning. If you want to know about cleaning an airbrush, dig through my videos, there's one about that. This is the most low maintenance thing you can get. If one gets faulty, oh well, you just get another one. It will work everywhere. You don't need power, you don't need any of that. You just need proper mask and ventilation. These two, as I said, you need a heavy duty compressor to be using one of those, otherwise it's not going to work. This is I've got a, might as well show you. I can grab it. Oh dear. So this is my compressor. It's 1 horsepower, 6 liter, 8 bar. So 6 liter for spray painting is not enough. It's great for nail guns and staplers, but for spray painting you need 25 liters is the absolute minimum, and with that you'd want to double it with a 1.5 horsepower minimum. So it's got a bit of time to fill up the tank, shut it, and then whatever. And they're very loud. You can use those type of compressor with an airbrush, but you can't use a mini compressor with a gun. And where these are really good is that it allows you to have something that's fairly cheap. I mean, this setup is about £50. A decent gun, I got this on eBay, this is 25 quid and it's a bit rubbish. I used to have a DeVille Bliss and that was like 200 and whatever, so they're a bit more. A compressor is a bit more, you need a hose, a good quality hose is going to cost a bit more as well. So for a lot of projects, this is going to be really cool. This is basically the same finish as a roller, your typical roller with a medium pile sleeve, like these ones. But what's cool about it is if I was to paint, actually I painted my background here with this. When you've got something with so many shapes or whatever, it allows you to just go and just paint the whole thing, as opposed to a roller, it'd take you 4 days to just go through all the small bits. So these are kind of similar, and it'll allow you flexibility. And I guess what's cool as well is you can wash this. You always want to wash it after you're done properly, thoroughly. And as opposed to having to buy these all the time, and you've got this and it just keeps on going, as long as you keep it clean. So I think that kind of makes sense. But just to rewind real quick, best finish compared to this. Not so much air, but a lot of paint. And this is called HVLP, which is high volume, low pressure. But even then, it can't compare to one of those, which is going to give you a lot of paint. And also, the paint doesn't have to be diluted so much as this. This is great for primer and finishes on car. If you're painting a car, you can't use this. You look horrible. You'd have to use this, and then you put many layers. You put like 3-4 layers coats on the paint on the car, and it allows you to use anything. You can use thinners, primers, lacquers, anything. This is not going to work for that, but it's a different sort of setup. So if you're looking to paint cars regularly and so on, you need to invest in a quality gun. I would recommend a DeVille Bliss or something kind of in between. iWater also does really good mid-range miniguns. And if you're looking to paint your shed and paint murals and just crack on and paint something like this with loads of intricate shapes, this is going to be your thing. As I said, £50, you can't really go wrong. If not, spray can, next best thing, and airbrush for fine detail. I hope this sort of shed some light on all of this, and I will catch you next Monday. Bye!